Reasons as to why violence persists in our country are legion, but our focus today is on how this relates to the scourge of unemployment in Nigeria. Our special report today is themed Youth Restiveness as a consequence of unemployment. My name is Kali Ikwe. Welcome to Violence-Free World. I'll see you at the flip side. The raging tide of violence in Nigeria is proving increasingly frustrating as more dastardly acts continue across the country. Recently, the Nigerian army killed a key commander of ISWAP in northeast Nigeria, who interestingly was a very young man. A study of the age range of Boko Haram insurgents captured by the Nigerian military in the war against insurgency shows the predominance of young people among them. That many of them are well educated lends credence to the argument that unemployment is one of the key causes of young people joining insurgent and militant groups. Strong indicators suggest that general youth restiveness and the Boko Haram menace is fueled by the fact that Nigeria, one of the largest producers of oil in the world, has most of its population below the poverty line of $1 per day.
There is no doubt that when the youth have nothing doing, they resort to violence. Not only resorting to violence directly, it becomes easy for charismatic persons who have evil agenda to convince them to do whatever they want them to do. Because you have the money, this person is hungry, you give him money, you convince him that so and so thing is correct, and that thing could be violent.
Well, I think, in my opinion, yes, this is the situation because an unemployed man is a willing tool in the hands of anybody who wants to manipulate him or her. An employed person usually is careful by his or her own actions.
The former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Charles Soludo, said 67% of people in north central Nigeria live below the poverty line, while the northwest and the northeast have 71.1 and 72.2% respectively. More than 10 million children are out of school in northern Nigeria, an indication that the unemployment problem in northern Nigeria is worse than in other parts of the country.
There is no doubt at all that there's a correlation between impoverishment and violence. So the amount of violence we're having in our society today is a direct fallout of the huge unemployment, youth unemployment that we have, and the impoverishment of the youth. And I've said it in several fora that until we have an antidote to the youth unemployment in our country, I have said it's a ticking time bomb and it's beginning to manifest. And with time, if care is not taken, then there's going to be trouble.
We need to have leaders with visionary leaders that thinks of tomorrow, leaders that think of their subordinate, leader that thinks of those around them. But unfortunately, governance in Nigeria today has been reduced to every 4 years where there will be election. All what leaders thinks of is to amass wealth that on the eve of election to share the 10,000 naira to 2,000 naira. That is why you see that leaders don't even think. If we have leaders with who are foresighted, they will remember. They will know that so year this will be the number of unemployment. How do I try to reduce this unemployment to BRS minimum? They are not doing that. All they need to think of today is to look for how to give them read guiding machine or phone or all those funny things and call it empowerment.
It is a well-known fact that radicalism usually prospers in the gap between rising expectations and declining opportunities. This is more so where the population is young, idle, and bored, where art and entertainment are heavily restricted. The involvement of young people in the rising violence across the country is a cause for concern, and many have blamed this on the high rate of unemployment in Nigeria. Every year, thousands of young people finish the mandatory one-year stint in the National Youth Service Corps without any hope of securing gainful employment or starting a business of their own. Generally, the frustration for the educated Nigeria is perhaps heightened because of a sense of entitlement their exposure to the good life education promises. Experts argue that this is a major contributor to the restiveness and violence in the land, given that there is also a rising spate of drug and substance abuse as well as rape and domestic violence. It paints a frightening picture of a situation threatening to spiral out of control unless something is done to tackle the problem.
Government needs to create jobs. Government needs to make life more meaningful. We need policies that can that will enhance livelihood. Okay, workers need good returns on investments. Workers need life wages, not wage. Nigerians need to be able to own their country. So amnesty may be fine, but it is going to be a short-term thing, and so it can you can't guarantee that it's going to work in Katsina or in Maiduguri or in Kaduna. Okay, governments at state, federal, local government levels need to do the right thing. Let us create jobs first and foremost. Create jobs, create opportunities.
There is a strong consensus that massive unemployment has led many youths to become elements of destabilization and threat to socio-economic peace, as more youths are now used by unscrupulous politicians to cause havoc in the country, especially during elections. While the federal government of Nigeria puts the unemployment rate at 23% and 40% respectively, it is believed that over 70% of youth population in the country is unemployed. The federal government, in response to this challenge, claims it has created over 7 million jobs in the last 4 years, which according to the Minister of Labor and Employment, Chris Ngige, should not be looked at from a white-collar perspective alone, as indeed so much has happened in the agricultural sector, something he calls the blue-collar job.
I have not seen the efforts of government manifesting practically on the streets. Everywhere you go, you see Nigerian youth getting involved in all kinds of things. Today, the things I see are that Nigerian youth are becoming more creative in terms of creativity in the arts, music, and things like that to get themselves engaged, because there is no longer free money in the streets. But in terms of government projects making an impact on pulling people out of the streets or out of poverty, I don't have the statistics, but from what I'm seeing, I don't see any impact. I don't see any relationship between what the government is doing and the youth getting out of poverty. So I think the government needs to rejig whatever it is they are doing. They have to increase the tempo to make it more impactful, to make it more workable, to make it, to pull the youth, to let the youth see that yes, when President Trump makes a statement that 7 million jobs have been created in the US, you can track it. So I want Nigeria to be able to track it.
Youth need orientation again. The youth need more food. We need to focus on the youth. Anything that will make the youth as great as they should be, we need to do that. Some of us may be lucky. I'm in my office sitting. If I must say this and I repeat it, and we need to know, if I have no hope, if I believe I can be something, you will find me under the bridge smoking weeds or wasting my life away and can even resort to violence. But today, even if violence is coming, I will look for a way to excuse myself. And I think we need to really focus on them, work on them, discuss with them.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has also announced a program to create 10 million jobs in 5 years as part of the Buhari administration's plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years through job creation and economic diversification.
We must up the game using the private sector to address the issue of youth unemployment, because government cannot employ. It is the private sector that drives employment. Government creates the level environment for the private sector to grow, and when the private sector grows, the issue of employment is addressed. So for me, that is one major area, and I think I must commend government for what government is doing now. The empower, school feeding, all these things are all aimed at engaging as many people as possible.
I remember one time when I was working for government, we were 3 in the office and the job was moving fine. Suddenly, 12 more people were employed and posted to us, and we became 15 and the work got spoiled. So if that is the kind of job government is saying is creating, where you are an already saturated office, you now employ more people to go and work there, that is not the kind of job creation we are talking about. We are ministries that are already saturated with staff, you now give more people jobs there to go and be lazy and just collect salaries. That is not job creation. We're talking of job creation that is practical, that brings new things into place. Not where people are already working and you now bring more people to work there and they now they spoil the work more and you see you have created jobs. So I don't need that kind of job creation. We want to see government creating jobs and those new jobs making new impact in our society. So until Ngige and the rest of them are able to do that, I think what they are saying is just blowing hot air.
I'm worried that what's happening now, if the ratio of the youth coming out of school cannot find job and they must feed, the only option left for them will be to go into violence. And so this is one area government must look into.
Finally, while government, the private sector, and others continue in their efforts to resolve the unemployment challenge, we must remember that the situation has reached a critical point. Violence is sadly becoming an alternative to many people. If we must rescue our nation, therefore, from total destruction, then the pace at resolving the unemployment challenge must turn quicker. A violence-free Nigeria, and indeed a violence-free world, is possible. Our guest on the show today is a foremost politician and fierce critic of this administration, in fact, of all administration. His name is Dr. Junaid Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed, you're welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Mohammed, now please tell me, what would you say to the opinions around generally that banditry, kidnapping, insurgency generally are due to the deplorable state of unemployment of people in Nigeria, because people are vulnerable as a result of this? What would you say?
Well, I think that is spot on, as the Americans say. There is no problem with that because it's the truth. But that in itself does not adequately explain the problems of banditry and thuggery and all manner of terrorism, which is prevalent nationwide. It is a major problem, but it is not the only reason for the problem we have. Because even if a nation or a community is going through a rough patch economically, it does not justify people who are essentially civilians taking up arms against the civil administration or against the governments of the day. Now, the issue, of course, of government or of governance is a very important issue because, frankly speaking, no matter how lousy a government is, no matter how lousy the security, economic, and political situation of the country is, the fact remains that people have to be governed. Human nature demands to be governed because if human nature is not effectively governed, we are going to have very serious issues because both the rich and the poor will be on the receiving end of this enormous uncertainty, banditry and what have you. So I'm not surprised at all, but there are other reasons apart from the ones you mentioned.
Now, with a population of over 200 million people, and poor infrastructures around like roads, electricity, and the rest of them, I can imagine that this should be very, very frustrating for government and for us as society generally. What's your take on this?
Well, again, the issue of infrastructure is a very important one, but it doesn't per se adequately represent or explain the quandary this country finds itself. I think the most important issue we are confronted with today is the issue of leadership. Without effective leadership, nothing can be done. Countries that are poorer or who are going through much tougher times have been able to manage their resources and their security and their social harmony in such a way that at least the country does not present the picture of being ungovernable. What we have today in Nigeria is a country that is given all the pictures, all the characteristics of a nation which is beyond governance, and that I think is a major tragedy. Secondly, I think there is a very serious misperception on the issue of democracy. Some people tend to credit democracy with a lot what that is not democracy. For example, people have been talking about democratic dividend. There is no such thing. It's a figment of the people's imagination. A nation, in fact, needs to be properly governed. It needs to be, subject of a very serious effort at nation building. It has to have a very important national consensus politically, economically, and security-wise before it can have what you call a democracy. Because if the nation is not in good health politically, economically, in terms of security, that nation can never have an ongoing democracy.
Some youths in Katsina State who until recently adored the personality of Muhammadu Buhari. As a matter of fact, Buhari is from Katsina State, now getting disenchanted to the point of even burning down his billboard. Some of these young people, I understand, are even unemployed people. What does this say to the personnel of General Buhari and this administration generally?
Well, whatever happened in Katsina could have happened anywhere. Could have happened in Kano, because Katsina is not his political home. It is Kano which is his political home. So I have no doubt in my mind that the performance of the government is such that whether in Kano or in Kaduna, where he has lived most of his life since he left school and joined the army, or in Katsina, which contains one of the small towns which is his hometown. These are areas that must be addressed because it simply demonstrates the enormous dissatisfaction of the people who voted for him. And I have no doubt in my mind that Buhari won his election fair and square. I could even argue, if I want to be mischievous, by saying that he had won another election but he was denied. But that is beside the point. You can win an election, you can win an election in a landslide, and yet lose that mandate that you got because you have not performed.
It seems like most people, given the meager resources they earn, are just trying to keep, or they're just putting on the face that they do a job. And Senator Ndume recently alluded to this too. What can we do?
Well, first and foremost, corruption is not just a Nigerian problem, it's a universal problem. And the solution to corruption is not just adopting a catch-all situation and say, every time you have a problem with somebody, you say he's corrupt. No. And even if the people you catch and you allege are corrupt, they must be taken first, subjected to the provisions of the rule of law. After they have been confirmed to be corrupt, then of course you can now say yes, even if you libel them, libel is fact defense to libel. The situation we have in Nigeria today is this: because this problem is so humongous, it is literally a threat to our survival as a country. It's an existential threat. When people are accused to be corrupt, the tendency among Nigerians say, oh yes, I can see that. Look at the kind of cars he drives, look at the kind of women he dates, look at the kind of gold watches he adorns on his wrist. The issue is that once you do not have the necessary arrangements, the necessary bureaucratic and institutional arrangements, you're not likely to succeed fighting corruption.
Well, we'll take a quick break now. I will be right back after this timeout. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're still watching Violence Free World. And we've been talking with Dr. Junaid Mohammed. It seems like most people, given the meager resources that they earn, are just trying to keep busy and fulfill righteousness to the fact that they're actually working. Meanwhile, they are suffering and probably smiling. Is this the major cause of corruption and the rest of the stuffs in Nigeria today?
This issue of the level of unemployment, what you said about the youth and how they took up stones, not necessarily arms or lethal arms, to simply complain about the performance of the government. I have no doubt in my mind that the economy is in bad shape. I will not be surprised, in fact, if I am told by a credible organization like National Bureau of Statistics that we are in a recession. And the percentage of unemployment you mentioned is not unique to us. There are many other countries which are in that kind of situation. Some situations, in fact, are worse. But I also believe that if the nation has a good government, I think other good things will follow. If a nation is badly governed, and if a nation does not even admit it has a problem, threat to any country, no matter how stable, no matter how strong, no matter how wealthy. I also believe that good governance begets good investment by people in the country and by people from outside the country.
Unemployment is presently at 23.1% today, and it's projected that by the close of 2020 it would have gone to like 31.1%. Where are we really headed? Is this looking any hopeful? Has COVID-19 even compounded the problem altogether for us? What are we going to do to this situation? How is it looking for you?
In principle, I think creating 2 million jobs in a year is doable. I think it's doable. But then we have to have the serious intention to want to do it. But you remember, in previous governments and in previous administration in the past, they had promised several millions of jobs, and at the end of the day, nothing happened. So if they are determined to do it, they should sit down and do their homework and tell us the areas they want to make sure they invest in order to produce the 2 million per annum. If they don't do that, it will be nothing but propaganda and cheap lies. And unfortunately, Nigerian politicians have a way of lying to themselves, lying to Almighty God, lying to anything you can imagine. So as far as I'm concerned, if it were to be done, it can be done. But it can only be done if we are sincere.
Finally now, what would be your advice to the many young people watching you right now, beginning to feel already in their mind that it looks like people who take to violence eventually get rewarded? Either it's a case of like die trying, probably, or you succeed. What would be your advice?
The question you ask answers itself. Find jobs for them. I don't believe these boys are necessarily mad. Some of them are looking for jobs, for self-respect, to feed their families, and if they are married, and also help their aged parents. I don't believe they simply like violence for the sake of violence. No, they are not. I don't believe they are nihilists like the Boko Haram character, because those ones are gone. There's nothing you can do with them because they don't have a political message. They don't know what they are doing. They simply believe that by killing people they will go to hell, because perhaps they are fed up with this one, they want to go to the next one. But other than that, if you deal this with these boys fairly, I assure you they will reciprocate by behaving responsibly. And that has been my attitude.
Well, Dr. Junaid Mohammed, I think that's a very good point to leave it. Same time next week promises even a better edition if you endeavor to join us. My name is Kali Ikwe. This has been Violence Free World. And please remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you for watching.